Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before we get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. We have Morgan Payne on the podcast. First of all, like I told her before, that's probably one of the greatest last names you could ever have for anyone that's in the health and fitness industry. I mean, that's just perfect. As soon as I saw that on her Instagram page, I was like, okay, she needs to come on the show, regardless. I mean, I don't care even if she doesn't like bodybuild or do anything like that. She needs to come on with a last name like that. But she's coming to us all the way from South Carolina. I think she might actually be our first guest from South Carolina, but she's a personal trainer along with being a firefighter. So, hey, that's great with that. Well, so a South Carolina story real quick. So I have a friend in high school who was, he tried to be a jokester. So he would go like, I love Cox baseball. And then we'd be like, okay, what does that mean? So South Carolina Gamecocks. So then we're like, okay, what are you like? What are you trying to say something or whatever? But it's like, yeah, I love Cox baseball. And I was like, we were all just like flabbergasted by that. But anyway, so she's coming on to share her personal fitness journey and, talk all things. I mean, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But first of all, Morgan, thank you so much for coming on.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, absolutely. Well, I got to ask, first of all, what is the weather like in South Carolina today?
Today it's actually very nice. I went for a walk earlier and it was like 75 degrees and sunny. So it's like the perfect day.
See, now, actually, I told her before not to ask me what the weather's like in Minnesota here today, but it's actually not that bad because it's about, like it's around 75 degrees too, but it's so there's so much clouds in the air, which is good for someone with my skin tone, my pure Norwegian skin, where I mean I'm gonna get burnt to an absolute crisp if I walk outside and it's sunny out. So this is the perfect day for me. I'm probably just gonna go fishing after we're done talking here because yeah, we don't get these days that often where it's this cloudy where we don't get that much sun. But before I get into that, because that's a winter, I mean I'm planning on doing a winter woes podcast where that's gonna be 10 hours long. So before I depress everyone with the weather, Morgan, why don't you give us your backstory on what really inspired and motivated you to get in shape and how that led to where you're currently at right now, being both a personal trainer and a firefighter?
Honestly, I feel like it's just been something that I've always wanted ever since I was like a little girl. I've always known what I wanted to do. Like career day at school, I would dress up as a professional athlete. That's what I wanted to be, and that turned into a personal trainer. So I've always known like what I was passionate about, what I wanted to do. I was that weird kid like doing push-ups and sit-ups and like going to run for no reason. Um, yeah, I've always known what I wanted to do, and I was a cross country runner for 8 years. So played soccer, basketball, just all things sports. And I really started getting into bodybuilding probably like my high school year, like senior year of high school. And I don't know, I just fell in love with it. I started to see my body changing really fast, and I always got frustrated with cross country because I would go for these long runs like twice a day, and like I was good, but I wasn't the best. And I'm very competitive in my nature, and so it was like a slow transition from that into you know lifting more weights, and I would run a little bit less. And I ran in college for 2 years, and I decided that it just wasn't for me, so I ended up quitting and focused on bodybuilding full time. And did my first show in 2013, and I've just been hooked on it ever since. So,
And that's awesome. And at what point did you consider being a firefighter?
firefighting was something that I had thought about probably 2 or 3 years before actually doing it. I can be very spontaneous, but I don't know. It was a little bit intimidating, and I knew like I had thought about like the military route before that, and my parents were like, "No, you're never gonna do that." And I figured that they would say the same thing about firefighting because it's like a dangerous job. So I was a little bit hesitant to like jump on it right away. And like every time I would pass the fire station, I would just be like, "Dang, that could be me." And so finally, I was like, you know what? Like I need a new challenge in my life, and um, I just decided to go for it, and it's been the best decision I've made like ever. I love it so much.
So before we get into the health and fitness thing, I got to ask, since you've been a firefighter, what is the most extreme fire? What is the most extreme test that you've had as a firefighter so far?
Um, there's been a lot. Recruit school was pretty tough, but I enjoyed it. I actually ran a house fire my very first shift. So day one on the job, my first house fire, and you have all that adrenaline and just things are going crazy. I have zero experience with real life stuff like that, so I'm just like, "Oh my god." But it was awesome.
I mean, yeah, on your first shift, I cannot imagine, anything being worse than that, but being like, "Oh, we actually have to do something now." So yeah, yeah, that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you got to basically nut up or shut up basically on the first shift. And hey, that's great. But I mean, one of the myths and stereotypes that I love to bust on this podcast is that, it's gotten better the last 5 years due to Instagram, but there are still so many women that have that fear that if they walk into the gym and they pick up one weight, they're going to put on, like 50 pounds of muscle. And I know being a personal trainer, you deal with that, but did you ever have that fear when you were getting started? And even if you didn't, I mean, I bet you still hear that all the time. How do you like to respond to that?
Yeah, starting out, I did not have that fear. Like, I was hoping that that's what would happen. Um, but I do have a lot of women that come to me and they have that fear, or they'll say things like, "No offense, but I don't want to be as big as you," or whatever. And I just tell them, like, I've been trying to get big for literally 8 years. Like, I've been trying really hard, like, full dedication, day and night, like, eat, sleep, breathe it. It is not an easy thing to do. So don't worry, you never will. And then I just tell them, like, if you want to be bulky, then lift heavy and just be in a calorie surplus. But you're trying to lose weight, you're going to be in a calorie deficit, and that's never going to happen. And then just encourage them to try to gain muscle because it's going to be better in the long term and revving up their metabolism. And I just always tell them, like, 1 pound of muscle that you gain burns an additional 50 calories at rest. So if you can just gain 2 pounds of muscle, you'll burn 100 calories watching TV. That usually kind of like eases their mind, like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And obviously older women with helping keep their bone density strong and stuff like that. So I just try to explain the importance of it and try to alleviate that fear for them.
Well, and here's what you're going to say to him the next time, though. You say, here's the thing. If you get in better shape than me from working out, then I will hire you to be my trainer then. You'll make a deal with them then. So if that works out, because then you're finding something that, I've been looking for, my whole life, and me too as well. But one thing that I think impacts women so much more positively than it does men. I mean, it affects men as well too, but it's the confidence boost that working out gives you. I mean, we have heard hundreds of stories on this podcast of women who have, either been able to make, huge decisions, or it's helped them maybe be more assertive, or it's helped them better every single aspect of their life. And I always say that that's the one thing that you can take from the gym and use to impact every aspect of your life is just that confidence boost. How have you taken that confidence boost that working out has given you and used that to better your life?
Oh, it really has. I wasn't really that confident in high school, and then I saw myself, like, the more I got into the sport of lifting and bodybuilding, like, it just my confidence has grown. And I'm not cocky. I'm very humble, but at the same time, like, you can't get under my skin. Like, it's anything that you say to me, just it's taught me to love myself, like, to my core. Um, and that's really important in today's society because the standards of women and what you know the general population believes to be beautiful. Um, it teaches you an appreciation for yourself, and um, makes you appreciate your self worth.
Well, yeah, and I gotta say, like, when people ask me, like, what is the number one thing that you love doing about this podcast? Like, I have learned so much about, like the stuff that some women go through and stuff like that I would have never guessed in a million years. So yeah, it's the ever changing standards of beauty. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I mean, it makes me wake up every morning and be like, oh my God, thank God I was born a man. Jesus. I mean, it's like, good God, I really dodged a bullet on that one. But I mean, one of the things that I also love to talk about too are genetics because everyone's on Instagram, okay, we got a cute dog alert, everyone. I have to stop the What's your
This
dog's
is
name?
this is Sunny.
Oh, Sunny. Hey, Sunny. Oh, let's see if he did. That is so, oh my God. So it's a golden lab?
He's a lab.
Oh, yeah, those are
I,
some of the, I love, oh yeah, that's so great.
he's my baby.
Sunny. No, see, I'm honestly making a compilation of the podcast too, and we get interrupted by animals too, and it's gonna be great. Oh, Sonny, come on, Sonny, you're so cute. Oh, that's so cute. How old is he?
3.
3? Yeah. So we got a little 3-year-old dog too. We have a little Cavachon that's like this big. I mean, your dog would eat my dog for breakfast, but
No,
yeah.
he's actually, like, really afraid of other animals. He's
Oh
very
yeah.
sensitive to animals. He's a sweetheart.
Sunny. That is so cute. So my favorite, before we get back into it, my favorite animal moment on the podcast is that I had a guy bodybuilder on and he had a cat in the background and he had his bodybuilding trophies on like a wall in the background and the cat jumped up on the wall and started kicking off the trophies while we were talking. And I was like, okay, that's staying in. You realize that because that's the greatest thing that's ever happened on this podcast. He's like, oh yeah. So Yeah, I mean, I plus I'm being honest when I say this, like you will never meet a bigger dog lover than me. So like yeah, dogs coming on the podcast. That's like my favorite. So this just made the podcast right here.
Oh, yeah.
Is your dog coming on? But yeah, so I'll getting back to the question. So one of the things with genetics too, when everyone like says like, oh, I want her arms, I want his back. I mean, people just don't understand that you can only be the best version of yourself. I always say though, whenever someone first gets started working out, though, they always have that one body part that really, really takes off that they don't have to train as much, and they have that one body part that just drags behind that they have to train to oblivion to get it to catch up to everything else. What were those body parts for you when you were working out and getting started?
Definitely my legs are my strong suit. I have people coming up to me all the time asking me what I do for them, and I do train them very hard, and I did for a long time. So when I was running cross country, my dad would take me to the gym, and we would train legs because I thought that's all I needed to do because I'm a runner. That's all I use. So that, in combination of running, I think really helped develop my legs the way that they are. And my weaker body part is definitely my shoulders and my arms. They just don't grow.
Hey, so we are exactly the opposite though, because my back is the one thing that really, really takes off. But that's because I worked in warehouses all throughout college, and you either got a really nice back, or you quit. But I'm 6'3", so my legs are just absolutely shot. Where I mean, I could train them into oblivion. And I know being a pitcher, I had that long and lengthy body where I was just a twig basically through most of high school. But yeah, I always said I could inject pure muscle into my calves or thighs, and they wouldn't gain an ounce. I don't know how that's possible, but it just is. But yeah, I was gonna say for anyone out there that doesn't follow her on Instagram, it would be a shock for you to say her legs. But if you do follow her on Instagram, you'd be like, duh, it's her legs, obviously, because like I was like, she might have trouble fitting through doors sometimes with those tree trunks that she's got, basically. So yeah, that's just absolutely ridiculous. But again, that's why I love asking that question because it just shows the wide variety of answers. Where I mean, not everyone's born the same, and not everyone has the same gifts that everyone else has, but the one thing that I love to talk about more than anything else on this podcast is the nutrition aspect because so many people don't understand that nutrition is 80 to 90% of the changes that you're going to make. I mean, I still have those, I call them just my poor friends where they just believe, hey, I'm 25, so I can still, work out 5 times a week and I can eat whatever I want. I can, have Jack's Pizza 4 or 5 times a week or whatever. And then, I'll be fine. And it's like, yeah, maybe because you're young now, but I was going to say, try that 10 years from now and then get back to me and see how that works. But people just don't understand the need for nutrition. And I mean, there's still that age old belief that, hey, if I just work out, I can get away with eating whatever I want, where it's like, yeah, that might work for a while, but good luck. But what were some of the bigger nutritional changes that you made when you first started getting into bodybuilding?
um, I would just so when I first started paying attention to tracking my food and tracking macros, I would just eat like lean chicken and greens, and just I cut all my carbs out, and I leaned up very, very fast. Actually, that's what I did for my very first show. I just went straight, just meat and veggies, and I just kind of rode that all the way through, and didn't really know what I was doing, but I was like crazy leanest, the leanest I've ever been. I was like 6% body fat. Um, but it worked, and it didn't work the second time I tried to do that and prep for a show. So I've definitely come a long way in my knowledge of nutrition, and but yeah, every prep is different. So
Oh, absolutely. And I always say, like 95% of the general public wouldn't be able to get into the amount of shape that getting into a prep requires. But, going on that prep, everything is just so scientific and it's just so, down pat. And it's,
it's very yeah, it gets rough, But like my whole competition career at besides like recently, I just kind of like isolated myself and just like fully committed myself to the show because that's just how I deal with it. It's just easier if I just turn into a hermit and just, eat my food, do my cardio, and go work out. But now I'm like, having like a mental shift, like, maybe I can have a little bit more balance in my life. And so that's another thing that I've grown in as I've evolved through the sport.
what is your relationship with cardio like? Because if you're like me, I hate cardio more than life itself. Where I mean, now because of the pandemic and I have all this free time, I'll go on like 100-minute walks on my treadmill, but I'll have to be watching a movie. So I'll cover like 8 or 9 miles out. I won't be going at a fast pace. I'll be doing like 5 miles per hour. So it's like speed walking, but that's just because I'm so bored. But what is your relationship with cardio like?
Um, Despite being having a cross country background, I do not enjoy cardio unless I'm like taking my dog for a walk. but I'll do it. I just added it back in. I hadn't done it in a while. I was doing it in recruit school because we had like mandatory PT. But aside from that, I'll do it if I have to, but I don't just voluntarily go, let me go get on the Stairmaster for 30 minutes. Like it's just not not what I enjoy doing.
Well, and it's like I'm 2 years out of college, so it's like I can't afford the amount of eating that I'm gonna have to do then if I, walk 100 minutes, every single day, then I'm gonna be having to spend, hundreds of dollars a week on food. So it's like it's like I've had that problem too, where it's like that the cardio is just one thing where I mean, and I'm gonna be honest, most people do not like it. But yeah, I was surprised with your cross country background. That gives me hope. That was like, okay, even some of these cross country people don't enjoy it. So that gives me at least a little bit of hope for something. But the number one thing that I would have never guessed in a million years when I started this podcast that affects, so many people, and it's the hardest thing for so many competitors is the posing. I mean, so many people talk about how posing it's harder than your working out, it's harder than your nutrition. Where I like to compare it now to being a perfect driver, where you can be a great driver, you can never be a perfect driver. You can be a great poser, you can never be a perfect poser. It's always ever evolving. What is your personal experience with posing been like?
Well, I've done a lot of figure up until this year, so posing for me was pretty easy. Just figure poses, kind of robotic, and I don't necessarily enjoy that as much as I do physique, which I'm kind of in between both of those right now. But I do love just being able to freestyle it. I'm not the best at it by any means, but I have like my little poses that are suit me the best, that are my favorite, and I just stick to those. So
So going off of posing for 1 second, I got to ask because one thing that would benefit someone of like your body type, where you said it really took a long time for your arms and your shoulders to grow, is that with figure you don't need to really train them as much because it's not really, you're not doing like front double biceps, you're not doing any of that stuff. But when you're going into physique, you really have to take those things into overdrive. So what's that been like for you, trying to grow the body parts that really have taken the longest for you to grow in order to make this jump into physique?
it's frustrating. I feel like my physique is like really like versatile. So I feel like if I really wanted to, I could probably jump in wellness. I could do really well in figure, and I could do pretty decent in physique. I did North Americans last year, and I placed sixth in both of them, figure and physique. And the judges told me they like me better in physique. So that's probably what I'm going to lean more towards, just based on how I like to train and the posing and everything. But it's definitely very frustrating having lagging body parts that, you know,
Well, I was going to say that makes your legs a blessing and a curse, because it's a curse because they're so big that you basically have to go to physique. Where if you were to walk in like a figure wellness show, they'd be like, "Holy crap, that's huge!" But yeah, that's why I love to talk about this, because with the general public, they just assume that like, oh, if you have one big body part, you can go and win a bodybuilding show. Where it's like, no, you have to have symmetry. Everything has to be perfect. Where yeah, if someone were to take a look at your legs and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, she's going to win a show," where it's like, well, you also have to work on other areas of your body as well. Now, believe me, if they were to like make it where like who has the biggest arms or who has the biggest back or something like that, then that would be something different. But yeah, that's why I love to bring that up. But back to posing, out of the physique poses that you're currently working on now, what is your favorite pose and what is your least favorite pose?
um, probably favorite is side chest or side tricep, and my least favorite is probably the back double by.
Okay, thank God, because we've had two other people say that front double by is their least favorite, and I was like, good God, what is wrong? What is wrong with you? But so back double by is fine too. But here's the problem though. So for me, if I ever bodybuilded, which I'm probably not going to, but if I ever did that, the back would be my favorite pose. Not just because my back looks great. That's actually not even the reason why. It's just because that's the one pose where I can let my smile down, where I won't have to be, where I can just be like, okay, I can take a breather now. I can, collect myself. So that would be my reasoning at least behind it. But I mean, when you're competing in these shows, what is that feeling like for you when you get to walk up on that stage and show off all that hard work that you've worked months upon months on?
It's pretty amazing. It's honestly not my favorite part of it though. It's just something that I kind of do. I'm very quiet and introverted, so I mean I don't mind being in the spotlight, but it's not my favorite thing. I just enjoy the process of it, just getting to that point, and then show day. Show day, I kind of just am a nervous wreck the whole day, and I can't really relax until everything is over. So it's enjoyable, but it's not my favorite.
Well, and I gotta say too, I'm glad that you said that because we have some guests where it's the exact opposite, where they're like, I hate prep, but I love going on stage. And I was like, you poor thing, then your life must just be miserable then because you're on stage for what, like a minute at the most when you've trained months upon months for this. So I'm glad that you at least enjoy the process more than that because I was gonna say for some of the guests that have had the opposite set, I'm like, I just feel so bad for them.
No, I would do this regardless if I never stepped on stage again. I just love the lifestyle of it. I love, the process.
Yep, absolutely. Well, now one of my favorite questions to ask: what is a go-to post-show meal for you?
Oh man, probably a burger. I think that's what I had last show. But really, you're just ready to eat everything. You're so hungry. A burger and maybe sushi. One of those.
Yep. Everyone knows this answer, but I'll say it again. For me, Five Guys, I would just go and rent them out. Basically just pay them $1,000 and just be like, "You're gonna feed me until I either pass out, puke, or throw up." But either way, I'm going to get my money's worth. But another myth that I love to bust on this podcast too, and we mentioned it a little briefly, is that so many people don't understand that look that you present on stage, that is not a sustainable look. I mean, we've heard so many stories of people who, especially if they don't have a coach when they first get started, they really do suffer from that after, where they just think that, hey, I can look like this for the rest of the year, basically, where they don't realize that, first of all, I'm going to spoil it for everyone out there, that you're not at your healthiest when you're on that stage. I mean, you are at probably your unhealthiest that you're going to be just because you've manipulated so many things with your water and your diet and stuff. So, I mean, it's not at a healthy place. But what was that like for you when you first realized, like, hey, all this hard work that I put into this look, it's not going to be sustainable and I'm going to have to put on weight in the off season? What was that like when you first found that out, and has it gotten easier for you to accept that as your career has gone on?
It was really hard in the beginning. I felt like I had to hold on to it because you just feel like this pressure. Everybody's been watching you, lean out, and people that I hadn't seen since the show, and it's like a month later, and I'm kind of starting to look normal again. Like maybe thinking like, oh, what happened to her? She just let herself go, and just being able to be like, okay, just screw what everyone else thinks, like. But recently, my mindset has just shifted to, okay, well, let's just focus on getting strong. This is what you have to do. You know how to get lean. It's just part of the process. Accept it. And the sooner you can do that, the sooner you're going to make more progress. So now I don't really hold on to it. It's just, something that I have to do to get better. And, just shifting the focus of, staying show ready and lean to getting stronger and having better gym performance. So,
Well, and I always say too, it's just like starting your own business where you got to spend money to make money. You're gonna have to put on weight if you want to put on muscle. I mean, those unfortunately those two just go hand in hand, and I mean, it's something that I think needs to be said more because a lot of people just don't understand that. But two of the questions that I love to ask all the health and fitness guests that I have on this podcast. For the first one, I mean, there were so many positive things that happened to me when I started working out and getting bigger and stronger. But one of the negative things is that you're gonna get asked to move a lot of people's furniture. You're going to get asked to open a lot of pickle jars or bottled water or anything that's sealed on tight. You're basically the go to strength person for that. I came home to live with my parents during this pandemic just because I am furloughed. So I have, every time they come home with groceries, I basically have to lift the car into the driveway and carry in the groceries for them. Has that been a similar experience for you? Now, I know that you have a boyfriend that is, jacked out of his mind. So, I mean, he might take a little bit out of that for you. But do you still sometimes feel that, you might get asked to do favors if you have friends that are just like, oh, yeah, Morgan can do it. She's available. So, has that ever been a problem for you?
oh yeah, moving furniture, just all of that. And then like, let's just say I can't open a jar or something, and they're like, "Oh, well, you work out all the time. What do you talk like? What? Fire school? That was a big thing. Like, oh, well, you work out, right? Like, yeah, but throwing a ladder is different than picking up a fixed barbell. Like, it's totally different. It doesn't correlate the same way.
Well, and I said too, being a guy and being 6'3", it's a double-edged sword for me where I mean I could have zero muscle at all and they'd be like, hey, tall guy, come and help us out. So that's been one thing I've had to adjust to. But I mean, being completely honest, you are not the average looking woman. Like if you were to go and walk out in the street looking, even dressed the way you are right now, you're gonna get stares just because it's human nature when they see something that's not of the norm to just be like, oh wow, what is that? So what's that like for you? Because I mean, I always like to compare when you're a bodybuilder, you're sort of like a mini celebrity, especially when you're lean down for your show. That's when you get the real stares, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, is that like an alien or something like that?" That's just so fascinating. But what has that been like for you? And has it gotten easier for you to accept that if you walk out in public, especially when you're lean down, even the way that you're looking right now, you'll get stares. But has that gotten easier for you to accept that that just comes with part of the territory?
Yeah, like now it doesn't even phase me. Like I go places with people and they're like, "Oh my god!" Like everybody's staring at you, and I don't even notice it anymore. And I'll walk in a gas station and I just kind of keep my head down because I know like everyone just all eyes as soon as I walk in. I've had people like taking pictures. I caught this guy. I was standing in line. He was like pretending to talk on the phone, like, and then he's like snapping pictures and like holds the phone up again, and he like turns his head, and I see his camera screen.
Oldest trick in the book. That's amateur right there. That's like sixth grade. Okay, come on, guy. You gotta upgrade or something like that. But
Yeah,
yeah.
so I'm used to it. It's whatever.
Hey, and that's, I'm glad that you've done that because some people, yeah, it does take them a lot longer to really get used to that. But my favorite question to ask, and this affects, guys as well as girls, but, guys deal with this a lot, but for females, it's so much more is the clothing options. I mean, I always say, see, we get that reaction every time where it's like if you have big, broad shoulders, dresses aren't your best friend. Jeans are another thing that we hear of all the time. Where if you have especially with your legs, it's like let's be honest, you're not finding too many jeans that really fit you. And I mean, you always, you have to be in workout clothes almost all the time. But what have been some other tips and tricks that you've sort of figured out on how to get clothing options that work best for you? Because let's be honest too, you basically have to have two wardrobes: your prep wardrobe and your off-season wardrobe as well.
It's a nightmare. It's hard, and I have like zero boobs but big lats. So finding cute tops, it just everything looks weird. Um, so I mean, honestly, I don't really go out much. So like gym clothes are like my go-to wardrobe. That and then my firefighter uniform, and that's literally all I wear. And if I have to wear real clothes, I'm not gonna like it.
So, like, have you had to go to like any weddings or anything like that since you've started getting in shape? Because that's another story that like everyone always talks about. Is like wedding dresses. That's horrible to find.
No, but I've been invited to a lot. I'm literally such a hermit. Like I haven't really been
Hey,
anywhere.
hey, and this is the one lifestyle that it's good to be a hermit for too. Because yeah, I mean, that's the only thing that I think kind of stinks about the bodybuilding lifestyle is that yeah, like if you're a social person like me, you're really gonna have to sacrifice a lot of that. Because I mean, not even counting this pandemic, the social aspect, but I mean, it's really a struggle for that too. But I mean, again, it just shows how much goes into this lifestyle. But going into the coronavirus, because I mean it's something that's impacted all of our lives, whether we like it or not. And it's just been, I can't imagine a time in my life that it's been, so impacted like this. But what is your experience with coronavirus been like, and especially like in South Carolina? Because I know in every single state there are different things that are going on right now.
I'm from a very, very small town, and nobody's wearing a mask. Um, I'm a firefighter, so I had to show up to work regardless. I was going through recruit school when everything kind of got shut down first. And my gym I was lucky to still be able to train through all of it. We just kind of kept it on the DL. I won't say the name of the gym, but um, nothing really changed for me. The only thing different is it's just kind of weird now. Like I'll walk into a store and be like, oh crap, I gotta go grab a mask. But other than that, like it's been pretty easy. The meat what kind of got sparse. You had to limit your selection. I don't know if y'all had to do that. So normally when I go grocery shopping, I just kind of like throw it all in my buggy and buy like 10 pounds of beef at once and like all the chicken and so having to only buy two was really annoying. But other than that, it really wasn't too restrictive on me.
Well, yeah, about 30 miles south of me, that's like, big pig country. So yeah, they had to literally kill all the pigs just because the pigs were getting so fat because they weren't able to fit into the things that they have set for them because the meat shortage. So yeah, it's yeah, but yeah, up in Minnesota, yeah. So that's why I like the small towns because my dad's from a small town of like 200 people and they're probably doing the same thing that you're doing, but we happen to live in a city of 85,000. So things are a little bit different here where I mean, yeah, it's been difficult to say the least, but it's great that you're able to do that. But going through this pandemic too, I mean, it has affected a lot of people mentally. How have you been dealing with this mentally too? Because I know, I mean, you are the one person that's probably prepared for this because you already had that insular hermit lifestyle where it's like, yeah, I can go with like not seeing or talking to people for that long, and I have my job and stuff. But has it been a struggle for you at all mentally to just sort of come to grasp with everything that's going on?
It's just crazy. It's kind of annoying. Like I understand like it's a big deal, but at the same time, like you're gonna. This is my mindset. If I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna get it. So I'm just gonna live my life the way I've been living it, and I feel like I have a strong enough immune system that I would be fine. I know not everyone is like that though, so hopefully they're sheltering in place or
Well, I got it in March actually, and yeah, it was I mean, it was just like for me, it was just like the flu because, like, I just turned 26, so I'm, in that age group where it's not going to be that bad. But, hey, still, I still say to people, it's like you don't want to willingly give yourself the flu. But yeah, when it comes to like being worried about like dying from it, I usually just tell most of my friends, I was like, for most of us, if you were to put 1,000 of us in a room, like one or two of us might die if we got it. So it's very, very rare for that to happen for people that are, on the younger side. So I just like to, put that out there. But also, I mean, being a personal trainer, one of the biggest excuses that I bet you hear, because I've heard from all the guests that I've had on, is, people always say, "Oh, I want to get in shape. I just don't have the time. I'm so busy." Now, if you give that excuse, you're a crazy person because everyone has so much free time now to do.
Hate that excuse. I hate it so much.
Mhm. Yeah, everyone, yeah, and I hate it too because it's like we all have the same amount of hours in a day, unless you're like Dwayne the Rock Johnson. He must have made like a deal with the devil to give him like 27 or 28 hours because how he's able to do everything that he does, I don't understand. So, he might be that one outlier where it's like, yeah, you maybe might be able to, get a couple more hours out of your day. But I mean, I always say too, the one thing that people, really struggle from is that they want to get in shape, they just lack the tools and the knowledge on how to do it. And so, what advice would you have for someone that's coming up to you and saying, Morgan, I really want to get in shape, especially during this pandemic time where, I mean, we have so much more free time. I can really focus more on myself, but I just don't know how to get started. What are some tips that you'd like to give them? Because, I mean, I always say most people probably are going to be scared of going to the gym now just because, they might have that fear of like, oh, I might get it at the gym just because people sweat a ton and stuff like that. So they might just want to do it from at home. But what advice do you have for them just to get that background of working out? Because I always say when you get that background, it's so much easier when the gyms finally, become a little bit safer in the people's opinion to then go there when they have just, that extra added push that really helps them make that change.
I would say, the internet is a beautiful thing and you can find literally almost anything on the internet. So, if you haven't ever really worked out but you're trying to get somewhere, just start going for walks twice a week. Nothing crazy. And then, three times a week and, starting, push-ups, sit-ups, do what you can with what you have. Or, there's so many online coaches like, me myself. Find someone good that can maybe, if you have the finances for it, who can put together a specific plan for you. Someone knowledgeable, someone who can help you with nutrition and kind of break everything down to where you understand it and where you start to learn. So,
I couldn't agree more. And the walking thing, I 100% agree with. Even though like I said, I hate cardio, but yeah, that's the easiest thing really to get started. And I mean, if you're able-bodied and have both of your legs, that's the one thing that everyone can do, and it's not going to cost you a thing. So I'd say definitely get on that. And yeah, we've heard so many stories about people, even using like broomsticks and stuff like that, or just there are so many innovative ways that even if you don't have it, I mean, even filling up like a water jug, then you have like an 8-pound weight or so. I mean, it's just you can really do, really anything as long as you have that ingenuity. And like I said, I got annoyed because like the first week of this pandemic, everyone was posting at home workouts on Instagram. So literally, if you scroll through Instagram, it was literally at home workout. So it got to a point where I was just getting bored of it. Where I was like, okay, this is just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And if someone were to walk up to you and say, Morgan, we made the decision, you can change one thing about the bodybuilding lifestyle or just the sport in general, and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see change?
um, maybe the excessive drug use. There's some just ridiculous protocols and things that that go on behind the scenes that people don't know about. So maybe shift the focus a little bit. And it's gotten so mainstream and like easy to get that people who don't even do bodybuilding shows are trying to take a bunch of stuff and they really haven't even mastered their training or their diet. And it's frustrating for me when I have guys come up to me and ask me, for stuff or, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And the first thing I ask them is, well, how's your diet? Oh, well, it could be better, blah, blah, blah. Well, if it could be better, then why don't you fix that and, work on that before you jump the gun and just start taking a bunch of stuff.
Well, and I always say too, especially for females, do your research on what these things can cause. Especially because we've heard some of those horror stories where people later on in life they just deeply regret it, and that they've ruined a lot of things. So definitely, I mean, it's got to be something that you have to research and really make a sound decision on. And my opinion on it is, I mean, it's none of my business what people are doing, and it. steroids don't make you, or drugs don't make you any bigger. I mean, you still have to put the work in. I mean, they're not just magically going to be like, oh, poof, I'm huge now all of a sudden. You still have to put the work in. But yeah, I'm grateful that you're honest about that, because so many people aren't. And honestly, so this will already be published by the time I publish this, but I'm just telling you. So this coming Monday, I had a guest on, Stephanie Flesher, and she's did an all exclusive about like her drug use and drugs in the sport. It's an hour long, and I'm very excited to launch it, because it was so eye opening even for me, because I knew a lot about that, but like she really dialed it down for me. So I'm excited about that. So we'll see how that goes. But I appreciate, yeah, you for being honest like that, and for me too. Where I mean, it's like if people would be more honest about it, because my biggest pet peeve are people that like post these like workout programs and like, oh, you can look just like me if you do this workout. It's like, well, do they have enough money for all the drugs that you're on too, or something like that, or do they have that access? So it's like, yeah,
They can't admit that because they're trying to sell a product,
yep,
you know? It's like, "Take this and you'll look like this,"
hmm,
but the reality of it is
yeah.
you won't.
And yeah, and I understand that. And yeah, I just thank you a lot for saying that, because it's, yeah, like you said, it's such a taboo thing where I never bring that up in the podcast unless the guest brings it up, because I just don't want to make the guest feel uncomfortable. But yeah, that's awesome that you did bring that up. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, where'd you like to be at in your bodybuilding journey? Where'd you like to be at in your personal training and firefighting? What are some goals that you'd like to have achieved if we were to talk to you a year from today?
A year from today, hopefully, I'll have my pro card. I do plan to compete in 2021, so I'm gonna go for it, again. I've done 2 national shows, so this will be my 3rd one. So definitely that, settled in my career. I start EMT school on Monday, so to have passed that and, be doing the firefighter thing, just settling in, getting in my groove with that. And just, having a lot of clients and just being happy, just doing my thing.
And that's great. And I wish you nothing but the best in that. And lastly, I got to ask a firefighting question, because I'm just fascinated by this. Out of all the studies that you've done and all the stuff, I mean, because you've gone through class, you probably know the stuff. What is the number one reason that people start fires, and what is probably the number one way that people could prevent fires from happening?
Unattended candles is the number one cause. Just be careful. Like, make sure your stove is off before you leave the house. Just stuff like that, and clean your dryers out. There's a few of those. So just be careful. Be mindful.
Well, so I have a little story to tell then, because my grandpa, when my mom was like, I don't know, probably like 10 or something like that, when she was really young, he was a smoker. So one night, and this was like before Christmas, he had a cigarette or whatever, and then he didn't, and then he, put the match out, and then he put the match in a trash can. The match was still, a little bit, going. So, I mean, he blew it out, but then, obviously there's the embers and stuff that are still in it. So he put it in the trash can. Next thing you know, they have a fire in the garage, and, it burned some of the Christmas presents and stuff like that. So now to this day, whenever I blow out a match or anything like that, my mom makes me run it through the sink to
Yep.
make sure that, yep, to make sure that it's completely done. So yeah, anyone out there, yeah, make sure that you're focused on that, as well. But I love to ask this, because you're a guest that I think it would, really mean a lot to. So right before New Year's this year, I asked all my podcast, listeners, what is one body part that everyone plans to work on and grow the most this year? And the answers were arms, back, legs, abs, and shoulders. The number one answer was arms by like 10%. So being that you really need to grow your arms because they are a thing that's lagging, what does an arm day look like for you?
Oh, you know what? I hate doing arms. So it's probably just a correlation of my favorite to least favorite. I love training legs. Like, I look forward to that so much. Um, but I never designate just an arm day. Like, I never have just an arm day for them. So I'll throw them in with like shoulders or back or something like that. Um, but as far as like, you know, just going out and just, "Oh, I'm going to train nothing but arms today," it's never been like a focus.
Well, and I gotta say too, being that she did have that background in figure, I was expecting somewhat of an answer like that too. But yeah, I mean, see, that's the complete difference between a lot of men and women. Because for men, I mean, we just communicate in our arms in the gym. Basically, that's our one method of communication. I mean, where we're just, if we walk up to someone, it's like, oh, how much do you bench and how much do you curl? That's basically like the two questions that you're gonna get asked if you're a guy. But yeah, that's just so great. And is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to before we wrap things up?
I'll give a shout out to my coach, Alan Kress, because he's awesome. Um, Literally the best coach I've ever worked with, and I will be with him, uh, hopefully until like now till pro season when I make it there. So
Is there any shows that you have in mind that you're thinking of, or any dates in mind, or are you just taking it by ear right now?
Kind of just taking it by ear. I'm not in a hurry. I'm just doing what I have to do to improve. And the next time I get on stage, I want it to be just hands down, like there's a clear winner. And until I look like that, I'm just not going to get on stage. So
So as and I this will be the last question I ask because I have to ask it. So as someone that has small legs like myself, when you have big legs like that, are there any unforeseen problems that like someone with small legs like me might not understand when it comes to like, just your legs being so massive? Because for me, when I have small legs, I just think that that they're a hindrance. But is there any negative effect to having such big legs?
I don't think so. I love big legs. Maybe like I call it chub rub when your legs rub together. Um, but other than that,
I was gonna say you might get like some scratches or rashes then from just having them rubbed together. So if they get to be that big, that's the only thing that I could really think of myself either. But it's just like having big arms. It's like you're not gonna find a bad thing about it unless you get so big that like you can't fit through doors or anything like that. Then that's a different topic. But yeah, again, you guys, Morgan, we cannot thank you enough for coming on and sharing your journey. And everyone, go and give her a follow. I'll leave a link to her Instagram page down below. I mean, beware too, if you go and give her a follow, you will get inspired to get off that couch and stop eating those Twinkies and start to lift some weights. But again, Morgan, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your journey and just talking with us. I really, really appreciate it.
thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Well, even though I know your arms aren't your favorite, can you give us a front double bicep before things go? And I'll just say, everyone, get inspired. We'll get inspired to work out then, everyone. Yeah, see, they're not that bad. I don't get what she's talking about when she says that. They're not. They're good. Yeah, see, that's for any. I mean, for especially for that's amazing. But again, you guys, everyone, go and give Morgan a follow. I'll leave a link down below, and have a great day.
You too.